Welcome to Shoot a House Studios. We are here with the Shoot a House Podcast. I am not the host, maybe unofficial host. We'll see. Cheers to being here.
Cheers.
This is Angela Costello, the lovely agent who works for
John Hart Real Estate.
And we're here to just talk real estate. And I should take a drink because I didn't take a drink after I cheers. It's bad luck.
Yeah, you're right.
Cheers. Anyways, we're here to touch on a couple topics today, and one being home inspections, maybe one being appraisals, and then whatever else we drift into.
Yeah, let's get into it.
So anyways, how's the business right now?
Business is great. I mean, I've mostly been working with buyers, so...
Okay, so this is going to be good then. We can talk about
it is. It's interesting. I've been working with buyers mostly, so, going from the height of the market being overbidding, offers, multiple offers, and negotiations.
Zero contingencies. Screw your inspections.
Yeah.
Screw your appraisals.
You're lucky if we even tell you we're denying you.
Yeah, exactly. I got 70 offers. I forgot to reply to you.
Right. So going from that to now where it's like we can negotiate again, it's a more balanced market. We're back to negotiating credits, repairs.
I mean, yeah, for sure. I would say on the last couple transactions that I've done, I've been able to use home inspections for some credits.
Yeah, for sure. And you should take advantage of that right now, as much as you can. But I know it's not easy for the sellers and the sellers' agents to come back down to earth where they belong.
Agents are starting to come back to earth and understand. I think it's more the sellers who are like, because I'm dealing with a lot of listings, and I know that some of the sellers still think,
Right.
I have a couple clients who understand, like, hey, we might need to get a credit for a rate buy down, or if they do ask for repairs, we might have to do those repairs, or we might have to give them a credit for those repairs because buyers have a slight upper hand right now. And it's weird. It's like market by market. So we have some areas like parts of LA, parts like out to the IE, which I would say, Upland, Claremont, we're still getting I'm still seeing some buyers getting bidding wars.
Yeah, you'll still see it, I think, more on turnkey properties more than anything.
Yeah.
They're still selling
that's good
quickly. Right.
That's what I have.
Oh, good. That's good. Yeah. I mean,
you've seen them.
Well, your flips are beautiful.
Thank
the
you.
quality of work is there.
Thank you.
That's what people want. But in situations kind of like mine where I'm currently in an escrow where it was a flip property. The quality is not there. There was a lot of unfinished work.
So let's talk about home inspections then.
Yeah, let's get into home inspection because it was very interesting. So
when you did the home inspections on this property, you had mentioned to me before, but I told you let's talk about it when we get here.
Yeah.
So you're in escrow on a property that is a flip where the sellers are kind of still up in the clouds thinking they're going to get a crazy amount, but the quality of their work is down here. And I think you mentioned that they might have fallen out of escrow prior.
Yes, they had.
Okay.
And it's one of those things where transparency in real estate is everything. If the seller is transparent and the buyer's agent is transparent, it's a great match. But when the seller is trying to get away from having to do the repairs or do the work, it makes it really difficult because then they start to manipulate. Then they start to what I call flex on you, like in my situation.
It's a no flex zone. Like, we were talking about that.
My situation, the agent who's done flips before, they're not really quality flips. They kind of stop their work and they leave things undone.
Like the 99-cent store version of me.
They are. They're very.
I mean, I don't know who they are.
Bootleg.
Shout out to them.
Yeah. No,
anyways, so how did you find out that the quality of their flip wasn't there? Was it just visual, or did the home inspector come in and just tear the house apart?
It was both. It was me having the expertise of looking at great flips like you guys do.
Yeah.
And then walking into this one where it's like, oh my God, it's almost like the room is melting because you can just point out everything that they're missing. I mean, thresholds, who forgets door thresholds?
I mean all about that, trust me. But so you hired a home inspector though, and he came in, and I mean, what are like? Okay, so you've done multiple transactions. In comparison to other transactions, like what are some of the things that this guy found in this flip? Because I mean, what people don't understand is even if you buy a brand new home, it can be brand new from the builder. It could be a brand new flipped house with permits. There's still going to be stuff that's messed up. I mean,
always.
There's going to be stuff that's messed up unless, like, I'm super particular with my flips. I walk through the house 20 times before I put it on the market, make sure everything's perfect, and stuff will still come with the home inspection. So in comparison to like other transactions, I mean, what came up when you hired a home inspector? Of course, you had the clients hire a home inspector. What did he find that like what was like crazy? I mean, was there anything crazy like
first
sink
of
falling
all,
out the kitchen or
it's all in the home inspector that you pick. Choose your home inspector wisely depending on the house that you're going into. But this home inspector, oh my God, he nearly killed the deal for me just because in general he was pointing out everything that was obvious that needed to be fixed, anywhere from like forgetting door thresholds to electrical rewiring and things like that. I mean,
was the house rewired?
Some parts of it was, you could tell that it had an electrical box installed and it wasn't done fully the right way. And nothing that's not repairable. But
well, I've had home inspectors almost kill some of my deals because he said that like my electrical wasn't up to code.
Right.
But what the guy didn't understand was that I didn't even redo the electrical at this place.
It was there prior to.
It was there prior, and it was up to the code of the year the house was built.
Right.
And he was almost killing the deal because he was like, "Oh my God, this isn't up to the code. This isn't up to the code." I was like, "Well, it's not up to code of 1950." And he was like, "Well, yeah, today's code's not up to code." But I was like, "Okay, then why are you saying that? You're scaring the clients."
It's the delivery. I think with an inspector, it's the delivery. When you're going over,
this guy was like killing the deal. So it was
when you're going over it with your clients, especially if they're first-time home buyers, and they're in front of an inspector and they're hearing all these things, and on top of that, the way he's delivering the message is also like just crumbling at every moment. Like it was just like your house is just terrible.
Can I pause you right here? Because a lot of the things that I always have to remind buyers is you can bring a home inspector, which I prefer to bring just a general home inspector, because once you start bringing other experts, right?
Oh yeah.
You bring, I always recommend do whatever you want to make you feel comfortable. Bring like a roof guy, bring a sewer guy, bring a foundation guy. We're in LA. There's been earthquakes. We're a lot of the properties are over 100 years old. We might need to take a look at the foundation. The problem is that gotta take their reports sometimes with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
Because if you bring a roofing contractor to look at a roof and you don't know anything about it, his job is to find something wrong with the roof, and his job is to get business from that, right? Same with the foundation guy, same with the sewer guy. So look at the reports, and I would say, have someone else take a look at it as well, because as you're saying, this guy is spewing out stuff that he doesn't probably know about. He's putting on his report.
To him, it's detrimental. To my clients, it's repairable. It's something that they can get done.
Okay, yeah.
And I think that's the transparency of it all, is like what we know is really wrong and needs to be done, and the little things that you could do, and the stuff that we can ask for credits for.
So then, as an agent, you should know the general construction of a house, right?
The standards.
I think we talked about this last time, right? I think one time we were talking about one of your listings, and you learned what fascia was.
And I was like, the facial board. It's the facial board, and you're like, it's fascia.
It's fascia.
Get
because
it together.
I think I went to look at one of your listings, and I think I saw some termite damage. I was like, oh, you might want to replace that before going live.
Yeah.
The fascia. But we know fascia. I mean, you should know what even under the sink, what it should look like plumbing wise. I mean, it's very simple. There's hot, cold water, there's valves, and then there's the trap for the sink.
I think it all comes with your knowledge of what your home inspection is going to be like, and how many transactions you've been through where you've had to be there for inspection.
Well, for new agents, I say study construction, like, or go and look at houses and just see how it should look generally.
Yeah.
Because you might be able to advise your client, be like you said, the home inspector might come up with something that's like outrageous, but you can bring your clients back down and say, hey, you know what he said is an item, but it's down here. It's not. You said how he delivers it. He's like,
right.
Oh my god.
He's
oh
scaring
my god.
them.
Like this outlet.
The
wires are switched.
Yeah,
your house is gonna burn down.
It gets to the point where
but
you have to jump in, and like I had to actually jump in and let him know, like, hey, your delivery on this, you're going pretty hard on them, and as first-time home buyers, you're scaring them away from things that they don't need to be scared away from. There are things that they know they can handle. And I think at the end of that, they put that together, that he was a little dramatic. And I do recommend to my clients, like, you should get a plumbing inspector or a roof inspector. Don't go off of what the inspector's telling you to do, because they just don't have the licenses or the expertise.
But again, with a grain of salt, because I've had one foundation guy come in and be like, oh, you know what? Hey, this foundation, it's probably going to need like $10,000 worth of work, right? And so I wanted a second opinion. I called another foundation inspector, and this guy came out from another house and was just like, oh my God, this house is about to fall. Like, it's going to be like $80,000 for this foundation. Gosh. I was like, what? Like, and me, like, the guy didn't know that I'm like in construction, And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I've seen the pictures of all the posts and the footings and the beams and everything. Like, what do you mean? Like, and the other guy was just wanting to retrofit the property. That's why it's going to be $11,000, which means he's going to strap the posts to the footings and things like that and bolt the foundation. And the other guy was trying to write a story. He literally wrote, this is a foundation inspector, wrote in his findings that the footings for this property were made with concrete from the 1920s, and in the 1920s, people didn't have machinery to break concrete up like they do nowadays, so the concrete wasn't as refined, and since it was such manual labor, the concrete work generally is not as good as nowadays. And I was like, what? Like, bro, the ancient Romans still have concrete structures like standing. What are you talking about? Like, they probably, the concrete was probably better back then, like, I don't know what he was talking about, but he wrote like this whole story, and I get to my client, and they even kind of were like, what the hell is this guy talking about? So that's why I say, take it with a grain of salt. That guy won an $80,000 construction bid versus the other guy who told me, we just need to retrofit this, and it's $11,000.
You need to pay for your inspections. You need to pay for people to come out and give you estimates.
And don't be afraid to get multiples.
And don't be afraid to get multiples, because that $600, although it seems like a lot, I mean, do you want to purchase a property that you're going to have problems with later on and you don't have estimates? It's just down a rabbit hole.
Can we do a quick quiz? Maybe I want to quiz your knowledge of a home's construction.
Great. Okay.
So one, what's fascia? That's a giver.
The boarding around the roof.
Okay.
The wood board.
The
the edges.
What is GFCI? Outlet.
Those are for your electrical plugins.
Okay, and
so they have to have a reset, and it has to be not
so
backwards.
You know where they're supposed to be, right?
Yeah.
Near water, the kitchen, the bathroom.
Yes.
Do you know what they're for?
Yeah, they're to make sure that all the electricity is running properly in the house.
Yeah, and then if water gets in them, it breaks.
And then you could reset it.
You can reset it without having to go to the breaker box.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
So see, Ange is knowledgeable. And what are baseboards?
Baseboards, they're the things that run across the home.
Around the bottom of the floor? Okay. And I mean, those are just some simple ones, that some people don't actually know. Do you know what the air intake is for the FAU?
Is that for above the oven?
No, that's the fan.
Oh.
But like in here, there's one where it sucks the air out.
Okay,
it's the
yeah,
heater.
I didn't know what the FAU was, but yes.
Okay. So see, it's important to learn. Which, I mean, I know you've dropped a lot of knowledge on me since we knew each other, and I think you were newer back then.
Yeah, like just following what you guys do and
and then of course, like again, I'm in construction. It's a lot more advanced, so I know a lot more than the average agent when it comes to foundations and systems and stuff like that, which is not expected of an agent. You know, it's not expected of an agent, but it helps.
But given your experience, how long have you been doing it?
Yeah, 10 years. So
okay.
At 11.
Yeah.
I'm going on 11 now.
Okay.
So yeah, exactly. So what's been the worst thing that you've seen on a home inspection? I'm trying to think of some things I've seen.
I mean, I think plumbing is a big issue. Is if you miss anything in plumbing, your inspector is supposed to call things out, right? And their job is to, what they see visually, put it all in writing for you on an inspection report and give it to you. So if things are missed or not detailed in that report, which is really important, I mean, that can cost you a lot as far as going to court in long run. Yeah. So, you know, making sure that anything.
Is there a specific like item though that you've seen, like a specific like story that you've encountered where maybe the home inspector missed it or didn't explain it well enough and it turned into like something bigger for you?
It was plumbing.
It was a plumbing issue,
yeah,
so that's why you're
scarred.
It was
literally like 2 weeks after closing, my client's whole house flooded.
I mean, I would say one of mine is probably plumbing too.
And it was just like, okay, warranty only covers so much, but if your inspector misses something on that report or doesn't put it in the report the correct way, it could lie on you and that inspector. So I think that's a big one. You know,
so
it
mine,
has to be.
In regards to my home inspection, was that it came back, it was fine, and it said, "Oh, there's copper plumbing, right?" Well, what happened was it was a half-ass flip, and it was basically the people had inherited the property. The guy was a contractor. He did like a light remodel on the property to sell it before. You know, to remodel to sell it. So what he did was, and I don't know the expertise of this guy's construction company, but he did something that's like 100% like a no if you're a contractor. He took plumbing, he took galvanized plumbing, and he welded.
Enough said.
Yeah. Well, so he redid some of the plumbing with copper. But what he did was he connected the copper to galvanized plumbing, which when you connect copper to galvanized, like steel, copper shouldn't be touching steel because once copper touches steel, it gets oxidizes. The oxidation like runs through the pipe and it eventually erodes and you get leaks. So in the places that you could see the plumbing, it was copper. In other places, it was galvanized. So my client moved in.
How much of it was like
there was just certain parts, but it doesn't matter. It can just if the copper is touching any steel or any galvanized at all, it could be just touching it.
What was the price
even
on
if
that? What was the price to repair that?
I don't remember what my buddy told me, but he had to get it you know, we thought we were buying a house with new plumbing because there was copper shown on the home inspection.
You didn't do
We did a home inspection.
A plumbing inspection?
No, but we didn't do specifically a plumbing inspection. But behind the walls, we couldn't see. And that's another thing to note. When you have a home inspector, they can't see behind the walls. So you couldn't really blame the home inspector in this instance. We couldn't blame ourselves. It was totally on the seller. And because we did home inspections and stuff, the seller was like, well, you guys should have found it. So we didn't get anything out of it, but it ended up screwing us essentially where they had to redo the plumbing because in certain parts it was already oxidizing. Like I think they went to change a valve on one of the pipes, and they turned it and it like snapped off the galvanized plumbing where it was welded. So just know that if you see any galvanized or you see any steel or any type of metal touching a copper pipe that's not copper, then have that checked out because that will oxidize and it will leak. So that's something to know when you see your reports, you know, just in case.
That's a good one.
Yeah. But that's another plumbing situation. I mean, roofs, we really never know about roofs until it rains like crazy like it just did. I think roofs usually pass usually pass the vibe check, but once it starts raining,
yeah, you'll know.
I get like 5 clients who call me and they're like, yo, my roof's leaking. Like, what do I do?
Yeah, I was fortunate that we had really heavy rains the past few weeks, because I was like, if anything comes up on the roof, it's going to happen.
Well, that's
now.
like my flips. You know, sometimes I don't change the roofs on my flips because they look good.
Right.
And, you know, and they all stood up. So, like, no leaks on any of my flips. So I'm like, okay. And the roofs, you know, they could be 10 years old, but they still, that's pretty new for a roof. It's like halfway through the life on shingle roofs. But that would come up on a home inspection. Hey, your roof's fine. It's only 10 years old.
So what's the most, would you say, like on a flip, the most that you've had to shell out on credits due to work being incomplete or work not done properly? Because you take pride in your flips and they are really nice.
So I usually budget. I usually budget.
You buzz it?
I buzz it.
Already?
Cheers. No, I budget 1% of the sales price. My predicted sales price, I usually budget 1% to give back in credits. So if I'm gonna sell for 1.5, I usually budget like 15 grand, right? Even though I know my house is gonna be pretty much on point, you never know what can come up. I mean, I sold one in Highland Park, set a record there. I sold one for 1.5, and I thought the house was perfect. Like, I went through, I checked everything. One thing I couldn't see is the gas lines. So the gas line running to the fireplace had like, and gas is like I don't care who you are, your fucking gas lines leak. Like they do. There's no way for your gas line not to leak. Gas is so thin, it will creep through any little leak. So your house probably has a gas leak. My house probably has a gas leak, but you'll never know until you pressure test it, right? And so even the gas company, when they pressure test it, it just has to hold a certain amount of pressure for a certain amount of time, right? Like I think it's like 20 minutes. It has to hold like 2 pounds of pressure or something, right? And after that, after 20 minutes, you'll see the pressure going down from like 2 pounds or whatever. So that means there's a leak somewhere, but just the amount it's leaking, the amount it's leaking isn't enough to like redo the plumbing. Well, we were like, it was, you know, they were trying to negotiate a credit. They came in way over top. They wanted to renegotiate. Obviously, it was all cash, no contingencies, no appraisal, blah, 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 right? And so I had to shell out. You know, I just didn't want to deal with it at that point. And I couldn't, we couldn't fix it to 100% to where it wanted to be. Like, airtight, pipes, we would have to redo the whole gas line and stuff. So it was one elbow where it was leaking, and we tried to fix it. It wasn't holding up to the test. We tried to fix it, it wasn't holding up to the test. So finally I was just like, here's 10 grand, you guys figure it out.
Oh, okay. 10 grand's not bad.
Well, yeah, but that's because I take care of my flips.
You're budgeting for that.
I budgeted for 1%. So that 1% of my sales was 15.
Here's the thing
I think I gave 10.
Here's the thing about these flippers, though, that are going out there, and I'm, some of them will hate me for saying this, but I know everyone has to learn.
Yeah.
Right? We all learn through experience. But when you're out here doing bad work and trying to sell it at quality, it's like, come on. You can't cover up.
That's why all these noobs, noob stands for newbie or newbie, which is,
we know what a noob is.
Okay, some people don't know what noob is.
It's not a boob,
old
it's
school,
a noob.
Video game term. A lot of these noob investors are gonna be gone because the last 3 years you can get away with selling shit flips. Anyone can just paint and carpet a house and sell it. Right now, if you have any sign of your house not being on point, people are gonna pass over it, So, and that's with the market changing, right? With buyers being a little more picky, agents being more picky, So that's why I'm so particular on my flips, is because I show buyers houses. I am a seller of houses. I show buyers house all the time. I hear what they say. They say, look at that, look at that, look at that.
I think it's too, it gets to the point where it's like, you just want to make the most out of nothing. You just want the most money out of a flip.
They want to do the bare minimum and make the most money.
The bare minimum, and you want to make the most money. And when it doesn't happen, kind of like the situation I'm currently in, they're upset. and they're mad because they're not, you're asking for credits, you're asking for things, and they're like, the audacity of you to ask me. 2 years ago, we got 50 over asking for this crappy, cover up. It's like, no, not anymore.
We slap paint and carpet in here and I want, 100 extra grand. It's like, you spent $5,000 on this property. Like, that doesn't justify this. Yeah. Nowadays, we're being, buyers being picky. So I have 5 flips coming up that are going to hit the market. And trust me, I'm like, good. On point. That's good. And you know what? I don't want the house to be 100% on point. You know why? Because a home inspector, his job is to find things that are wrong with properties, right?
Mm-hmm. You're putting him to work?
No. So what I'll do is I'll leave an outlet not working.
Okay.
On purpose.
Yeah.
So the home inspector has stuff to find. Well, so that he doesn't try and be a hero and say.
I know. We don't want the hero home inspector. We don't want
No,
that.
You know what? I will use a home inspector's report to negotiate the death out of somebody, though. I mean, I think on the last one we did a crazy amount of research on this last transaction I'm closing, to where we asked for a $75,000 price reduction. It was a huge foundation problem.
Oh, okay.
We ended up getting like 20.
I was like, that's a lot.
Okay, we ended up getting 20 though. But yeah, that's me doing my research and then and using inspections and engineering reports and things like that to get that negotiation. The one before that, we got $10,000 for a price reduction because of some roof situation, right? I hope to God that roof's not leaking. I haven't got a call from them yet. But we got a credit, but we didn't fix the roof with it. I think they chose to use that towards closing costs. But as far as I know, and I talked to them often, I haven't heard anything about the roof leaking with this rain. So hopefully that's good. But yeah, I mean,
how many inspectors do you use typically, like that you bounce back and forth from?
So it depends. I give how many I use?
Yeah, like back here.
Rest in peace to Ed.
Ed.
My inspector, I used Ed for probably like 7 years. He passed away in a car accident. So in the past like 2-3 years, I've had to switch. And I've used a couple. I got a couple. It's a husband and wife who do it right now, and they're pretty good.
Oh, you told me about them.
Yeah, they're pretty good. I mean, they'll take a drone, they'll look at the roof. If the roof looks like it's messed up, then they'll climb up and get up there. They'll put cameras underneath the foundation if they can't get underneath there, but they'll go underneath the foundation. They're pretty good, and they're teams, so it gets done faster too. There's 2 of them, so it gets done twice as fast than one guy just going around or one lady just going around. So I like using them. And then if it's depending on the property, depending on how old it is, if it's like a house in Rancho Cucamonga built in like the 80s, I typically I advise the client still, like, hey, you can use a sewer line inspector, but unless there's a huge tree growing in the front yard, you're probably okay. Mm-hmm. Like, you're more likely okay. If you want to spend that $500-$600 to get a sewer line inspection, let's do it. That's gonna make you sleep at night, because I don't want you to come back to me later and be like, dude, I have a $20,000 sewer line inspection, like remodel that I have to do. So older houses, 1920s houses, I always recommend like a sewer line inspection, especially if there's a tree in the front yard. And the reason why I say that is because tree roots usually grow through sewer lines. The roots of a tree, it's natural for them to chase water. So where's water, sewer lines, there's water in there. They infiltrate the sewer lines, chase the water. So, and there's clay pipes back in the day. Those break easy with tree roots. Sometimes you have the cast iron. They'll grow through the cracks of the cast iron, like they'll be where the pipes connect, grow through.
That. Mm-hmm.
And the new plastic. If so, you see ABS plastic as a sewer line, that means that it was probably redone within the last
it was updated. Yeah,
it was probably done in the last 10-15 years. So that sewer line's probably good. Mm-hmm. And so depending on that, you can look at a roof and you can see this roof's messed up, right? And this is tile versus shingle too. Shingle roofs you can look at and see hey, this is messed up.
Yeah.
A tile roof, you can't tell because tiles are tiles. That's actually not what stops the rain. What stops the rain is the paper underneath. So you don't know what that paper looks like, and you can't go to someone's house for an inspection and start taking roof tiles off. Right? So you have to go in the attic and see if there's any yeah, I get sued. So you have to go in the attic and see if there's any any evidence of leakage. And if there is, then you call a roof inspector in. But yeah, I mean, I'll advise roof person, sewer line person, I mean, and a general inspector, that's it. And if it's a raised foundation, which some of the houses we deal with are raised foundations, that's usually like if they're, older than 1970 or 60, they're usually like on a raised foundation, the 50s and below. So you probably want to bring a foundation person in if your home inspector says like,
call something
hey, I
out.
see a post like leaning, or
Yeah.
hey, there's no footings. And to those out there that don't know what footing is, it's like the piece of concrete that a post, which is a foundation of the property, sits on. And if those are crooked or they're leaning or they're sinking, you might want to call a foundation expert in to like go over that. So, and leading to our next subject, it's like, okay, we have these repairs in the house, right? What's going to affect an appraiser, right? Because we were talking about appraisals next. Some items, need to be in good enough condition that an appraiser is going to say, hey, you know what? This house is appraising at the value without any repairs. Sometimes an appraiser will come in and say, what?
Well, it depends what kind of loan you have too.
Exactly.
So if your buyers are first-time home buyers with an FHA loan, they're going to call out more. It needs to meet a certain standard to be approved.
Yes. Okay. So let's say FHA requirements, right? So for an appraiser, and people think appraisers are only to come in at value, but appraisers actually come in and, look at some of the quality of construction. They don't just look at comparable sales and say, hey,
Well, that's what everyone assumes.
But
They're
they
just
come in,
gonna
they look at, there's two things they look at that people don't really understand. It's condition of the property and the quality of construction. And those are two different things that people don't understand, right? So what you just brought up, right? Is
But
my flips are condition.
I was just gonna say, as
so
a
my flips
flipper,
are
then you
quality.
know that what your quality is
so my
supposed
quality
to
is
be.
like
Yeah.
quality, and I forget. I have to, DM me. I'll check it out for you. I forget the order it goes. It's either quality construction 4 is like the best, or 1 is the best. I forget which way it goes. But there's quality 4 and 1, and they're opposite sides of the spectrum. So, one is, hey, this is a flip, but the quality of work is bad, or hey, this is a flip and the quality of construction is good. So that's quality, right? And then condition is completely different. Like condition could be the floor's falling in or there's a floor, right? So there's those two things people don't really understand when they look at a appraisal, and those are two important things to notice besides just, hey, this house sold for this, this house sold for this, right? And even though, hey, this house is a flip and sold for 1.7, this house is a flip and it's sold at 1.4. So as an agent, what are you thinking, right? They're the same size, 1.7, 1.4. There's got to be something telling you there, right?
Yeah.
It's this one was done with cardboard floors and this one was done with hardwood floors, right? So so there's a couple things in an appraisal that you should look out for, your agent should look out for you, rather than just saying, hey, it came in at value, or whatever it is. But
And wouldn't you say if you're accepting an FHA loan, those things are going to be looked at more precisely?
yeah, of course. Okay, so let's go back to
the.
the FHA appraisal. What's going to be shown on FHA appraisal? It's going to be, they're going to take a look at your roof to see how the roof is. They're going to take a look to make sure you have a working heater. They're going to make sure you have a working stove. They're going to make sure that the flooring is FHA acceptable. They're going to make sure there's no chip paint, right? They're going to make sure there's no termite damage. That's another thing we didn't talk about in home inspections was termite. You always get a termite. It doesn't even matter. Most termite companies give you free termite inspections, and if you find work, give it to them.
And as a quality,
just let them take care of it. They have warranties on their work. If it's $1,000, $2,000, you're not going to be upset 5 years down the road when you don't have termites anymore.
But as a quality flipper, because your properties are quality, they're really good. Your GCs are amazing, whoever they are.
Thank you.
But don't you know if you're accepting that offer at FHA? Isn't that you're already thinking ahead, a few steps ahead of what you need to do, or if there's anything
even
that's
just
going
as
to
an
be called
agent,
out?
it's just a regular agent. Like
You
if
should know
I
that.
have a client's house who's got like, and I've done this. I had a client who it was a son and daughter selling the father's house, right? Mm-hmm. The father was incapacitated now. He had dementia. They're moved into assisted living. They needed the money proceeds from the sale to pay for assisted living, right? Mm-hmm. They were able to cover him for a couple months until his house sold, but what I had to make them realize was, their father hadn't been taking care of the property. He's older, so he wasn't able to completely take care of the property. So the fascia, favorite word of the day, mm-hmm. had a bunch of chip paint. There was actually a hole in the ceiling from a previous water leak in the roof, which was fixed, but the hole was still in the drywall. Mm-hmm. Like, those things aren't going to fly with the FHA appraiser.
Mm-hmm. You already know
and
that's
I already
coming.
knew that. Mm-hmm. So, like, I told my clients in advance, we cannot accept an FHA offer. Mm-hmm. So just understand that that's going to take a piece of the market away from us. So that might have a cause in the price that we're able to sell this house. Mm-hmm. So just understand that, right? And they understood. They were savvy people. They understood my advice. And we didn't go with an FHA offer because I knew that if FHA offer came in, the appraiser's going to come in and ask me to fix those things.
Yeah,
right?
They're going to point it out.
And they didn't want to fix things. They didn't particularly want to fix things, and I think they had the money to do it. They just didn't want to do it. They just wanted to sell the house and get done with it. So yeah, as a FHA offer comes in, or if it's a transaction involving FHA, even VA and FHA have very similar guidelines. Mm-hmm. Then you gotta understand, as a listing agent, as the seller, there's gonna be a couple of things that the appraiser calls out. And again, it's flooring, heater, stove, roof, chip paint, termite damage, and am I missing anything?
Foundation.
Yeah, I mean foundation, but appraiser's usually not going to go underneath the house look at the foundation. If it's obvious the foundation's messed up, then they'll say something.
Obvious, though.
I think you mentioned that, like, you had the FHA appraiser called out, like, the window, though, right?
Yeah.
Or called out a window that was installed bad.
Mm-hmm.
I never had that, so that's a new one to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was really poorly installed. It was causing seepage from water through the inside, which got into the flooring. So going back to making sure that you check in on these flips, like who's doing them, is the quality there?
I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be a flip. I mean, that could be any house.
It could be any house.
It's just the listing agent should know that,
Well, if it's the investor listing agent of that said
so that's
property,
the same person, and they should know.
They should know
because they're
that.
a broker / flipper. They should know that better than anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, other things that could happen with an appraiser, like, how about what we didn't touch was the CO2 and like carbon monoxide detector.
Yeah. Well,
and fire smoke alarm.
Well, those are standard for FHA.
Those are standard for, I think, for all of them now.
Really?
Yeah, even conventional now. Yeah, you have to have those. So those of you at home, if you're selling your house or your agent's selling your house, you don't have a carbon monoxide detector, put that in and make sure you have smoke detectors in each bedroom, in the hallway, and just for good measure, put one in the kitchen.
Yeah.
But those are required for mostly every loan, every transaction in California. So, I mean, back to appraisals. What happens when your appraisal comes in super high, like higher than the purchase price? What do you do as a
buyer's agent?
Well, you always see that as a buyer's agent, right? You celebrate with your client, like, hey, we're buying with equity.
Yes.
What happens when it comes in low? What do you do?
That's a good one. I mean, it's up to the agent. For me, I'm going to look at the comps in the area before we even go view homes. I'm already going to know what
when you write your offer up,
when I write my offer. Yeah, I want to feel confident
about
about
that. So a good
that.
agent shouldn't really come in lower than what you're offering.
No.
Unless you've already done the comps your client's willing to pay over.
Right. And I think, too, in the market that we're in, where interest rates are a little higher,
Mm-hmm.
They're higher than what we had 2 years ago, obviously.
That was last year.
Right. So people are worried about, appraisal, like some of these houses were sold at the height of the market when they got the most. Mm-hmm. And now we're doing ours and we're a little lower, or should we come in too low? Like, don't go too low. I mean, you can't be a first-time home buyer going, I'm going to ask $20,000 under asking, because the agent too has a little bit of that, like, behind them, that they want to make sure they're not looking stupid putting out offers that are just going to get rejected.
Well,
so
yeah, I mean, I have a rule with my clients where I tell them I will not write an offer for you if we're like 20% less than the list price, unless it's like outrageous, you know.
Yeah.
So if it's $1 million, like, I'm not gonna write an offer like at 800. Like, that's the lowest I'll write it at, and I'll even tell them, like, yo, it's at $1 million. I'll write it at 900. Like, if you really want.
Yeah.
And we start negotiations there. That's a 10% decrease from the listing agent.
Mm-hmm.
But at that point, it's kind of a slap in the face of the listing agent, right?
It is.
Not saying there's some agents out there that are ridiculous,
no,
right?
there are some agents that are ridiculously overpricing, and you could tell that they're being led by their seller. Yeah. Which I understand.
And they can't do anything at that point. You got to put it up for what your seller wants.
Right. You at least the first 2 weeks, right?
Yeah.
To just show them proof that it's not going to move at the price that they want. But for your buyers, as a buyer's agent, which I have been the past year and a half, I need to be realistic with them and say, okay, I know what you're hearing on the news and what the media is, you know, conjuring up as far as like home prices have dropped, but we can't just come out here. I'm not going to just throw out like lowball offers and insult people. Like, we're not in the business to making war. We're trying to make negotiations.
It's just a waste of time. Like, okay, I can write an offer up in 10 minutes at this point in my career. Like, yeah. I'm that quick, right? Or I don't even do it. I'd call the office. Right. Hey, Shiz, write this up. Joe, write this offer up. Gabby, whoever's in the office, who's my assistant, write this offer up, and we'll submit it. The worst thing I can do is submit it, but also I'm like, hey, it's at this price point, it's not even worth it for to write it up. Uh-huh. So yeah, I mean, if you're going into a transaction and your offer and your appraisal comes back in low, I rebuttal immediately. Uh-huh. I'm like, dude, this guy's tripping. Like, this appraiser.
How are you rebuttaling though?
So
what is your strategy to that?
So sometimes I try to go find, and if, like you said, before you write the offer up, you're looking at comps already, right? Mm-hmm. So I know what's out there. I know what comps are telling me this house is worth that, right? So I've been comping one out in like Claremont right now, right? Mm-hmm. And the seller, it's an off-market deal. I have the buyer who wants to buy an off-market property for somebody I know, and the seller's potentially like, I think I can get this price if I just sold it. If I put it on the market, took the gamble, and sold it, I think I get this price. And I'm like, you would be setting a record for the city if you sold at that price. Go ahead and try to put it up there. Like, there's no way. Like, I think, like, they're trying to sell it to where the price square foot's like 600 a square foot, right? Wow. And then, like, the highest comp, the most pristine house, like, most badass house, badass finishes, pool, everything, the highest one's selling for like $545 a square foot. So that's like $55 off, right? So if I went to that transaction at, like, let's say like a 1.2, and I know based on the comps it's worth 1.4, that's $6,000 off. So I wouldn't enter that transaction, you know, at 1.2, because I know the appraiser's not going to be able to find it. Mm-hmm. But if I went to that transaction at 1.1 and I know that there was comps to support 1.14, then I'm comfortable, right? Mm-hmm. So let's, you know, I would go and find those comps that I saw before I wrote the offer, and I'll present those to the appraiser.
Yeah, that's the strategy right there.
I think that. So last year we had a lot of problems with properties appraising because the market was pushing people to go higher, and some of the comps weren't closing, so they weren't supporting your price. So I rebutted 2 last year. 1, it was crazy. I got the appraiser to come up like $50,000. He was way off. I had the appraiser. I was like, look, this is this, this is this, this is this. Like, why didn't you see those? Hmm. And then also you have to dig sometimes.
What city was this in?
This is like out in Banning or something. Like,
wow.
We did transaction out there. So the problem is that the listing agent that we're in transaction with, 2 of the listings that were comps were hers, and so she gave us the backstory on them. So one of them was a family-to-family sale, so it never went live on the market, and so the sellers gave the family like a $100,000 discount.
Wow!
So that's why one of the comps was so skewed, and it wasn't in the conditions like on the MLS. You couldn't see that. Hey, the family gave $100,000 concessions. Essentially, is what it is. That's why we have concessions on the MLS, so that you can paint a picture to an appraiser. Hey, this is why it sold $100,000 less, not because of what the value of the house is, but no, it's like the aunt selling to the daughter. You know, so that was one, and the other one that she did, it was another like distress sale, but it wasn't in the MLS. So I told the appraiser, like, these were distressed sales, you know, and there's 3 other comps also that were similar that sold like way more. And I was like, these 2 sales were distressed. These other 3 aren't. Like, you have 3 comps, you could use that. And so you need to take these 2 off. So when he took those 2 off, he was able to find 2 more, or I found 2 more, or something that supported our value more. He still didn't come all the way up to our value. We were still like $10,000 or $15,000 off. And I negotiated that down, of course, because it's me. But
wow.
But yeah, it's just,
toot.
I mean, that was. I mean, you got to understand the card game. It's a card game.
Yeah.
You know? So that's the whole different story. I found out the seller was moving out of state. They had to close, and when the appraiser didn't come back in, I was just like, oh, we're just gonna cancel then. And they were like,
oh, cancel.
The favorite
cancel culture.
The worst word of any agent. But anyways, so yeah, when appraisals come in low, rebuttal.
Rebuttal always.
So
pull your comps, know your comps.
Know your comps, and even this one time I was rebuttaling, and I found an off MLS sale through my title guy. So I had my title guys like, hey, can you run comps for this property? And like a sale or 2 came up that weren't on the MLS. They were just like, I sold my house to you, like off market, just sell it. But that transaction gets recorded at the county, so title sees that, but we don't see that on MLS. So, or I think the GPS location of that sale was like wrong on the MLS. So when I drew my map and looked at comps and stuff,
it didn't come
it was
up.
coming up as a different area, not in there. So it wasn't, when the appraiser went to look at the comps, he didn't see it either. So that one brought my sale, like my value up a lot. So just random things, you just gotta dig. But generally speaking, I don't think that they usually come in too low. For me, I don't usually write up offers that are over list or over what I think the value is, because then I don't want to have a buyer with buyer's remorse, essentially, right?
No one does. Yeah,
No,
for sure. That's not the goal.
Especially a lot of them, my family and friends and stuff, and like you're going to their house and like, oh, here's a dumbass fucking house that Nick made me buy. You know, so,
hold the flush down.
Exactly.
Because Nick
I can't
get
fucking
us a
go on
plumber.
vacation because we overpaid for this house.
Aww,
Like, no, you don't want that.
No one wants that.
Yeah, exactly. You want them to be like, damn, Nick got us a deal and moved to this place. I can't believe we got it. It appraised $30,000 over. You know, that's what you want. So, and then coming in at value, I wanted to touch on this. When an appraisal comes in at value, this is more for our clients that are out there. When and for the new agents, sometimes appraisers only bring the house in at value, which means that the purchase price versus so they bring it at that value because they don't want the bank to think that there's something funny going on, right? And so an example would be, I got a house into escrow at $630, right? The appraiser said the house is worth $700. The bank's going to come back and be like, why are you going to discount this house? Or like, are you giving them money on the side? And that's the financing bank, right? They're like, why is he getting such a good deal on this? Is there something fishy going on? Are they doing a seller carryback? Are they doing some sort of mortgage fraud, right? So the appraisers, to avoid that, sometimes will be like, hey, I think it's worth $7, but I'm just going to put it at $630 because I want to avoid any explanation on why the house is selling at $630, right? If you know, it's crazy because there's market value and then there's value, right? Like monetary value. Market value is what someone's like willing to pay for it, you know. Monetary value is like what's the comps are telling you there is, because market value could be like, hey, I'm willing to pay $100,000 over because this pool is there. But monetary value, that pool is only adding like 20,000-30,000 in value to most people. So that's a little thing that's confusing, and that's why appraisers will mostly come in just at purchase price. If it appraises more, and the rare chance that you get an appraiser who was like, hey, you got this house in contract $600, but I'm going to appraise at $700. I mean, you look like a rock star.
Yeah.
But then the bank's going to raise their hand, like, what the hell's going on?
Yeah.
And then you definitely want to show that to the seller, because then the seller's going to freak out. So that to avoid that, some appraisers come in at value or at purchase price.
Yeah.
So I just want to touch on that. Some of you, though, you're getting a good deal, but the appraiser's saying otherwise. Sometimes listen to your agent or your agent's broker, whoever's doing the values. They're probably more. They might be a little bit more proficient than a appraiser, right? Because we work those areas, we know the houses that sell. An appraiser could be assigned to Monrovia from Downey and not know the area, or it could be assigned to Northeast LA from like Riverside, and they don't know the market as well as you as the professional working that market. So but yeah, anything else you got to talk about on today's episode? I think we touched on like all of our pre-thought out stuff.
I think so too.
Any stories?
The worst story you had with another agent?
Worst story I had. I mean, is this me losing a transaction? I mean,
was it canceled? Did you get your credits?
I mean, let's see. It's hard because you have some bad transactions. You have some agents who, I have a funny story, I guess.
Let's hear it.
It was like in 2020 when the end of the year when the market was nuts, right? Like you put a house on the market, it was like 30 offers. So this agent wrote up an offer and was like, it's for my daughter. I live around the corner. I'm a single mom, and it's her daughter who's my age probably, like, and this is like my mom's age, right? So I kind of have like that feeling like, oh damn, if my mom was writing an offer for me, like, I felt it, like I want to live with this with my mom,
Mm-hmm.
And so she's like, my daughter's I think a nurse or something, and my client was a nurse, so it was like, oh shoot, they're both nurses. The husband's like a fireman. My buddy used to be like a fireman, like in the Navy or something. So anyways, like just it all like connected, like was like, oh damn, okay, we got 20 offers. And so I told him, look, we have like 5 offers higher than yours. I don't think it's going to appraise for that. All these other agents are going to submit high and then try to renegotiate when the appraisal comes. If you remove your appraisal contingency, you come at this price. I think we can appraise that price. We'll be fine, right? So she said, you know what? I'll do one up. If you accept my offer, I'll give you $2,000 of the commission back to your side. And I was like, okay, so yeah, it's your daughter. You don't care about the commission? Cool. Me just being me, like I took that $2,000 and I was like, to my client, who's my boy, I was like, look, the agent's offering $2,000 back to my side commission. I was like, I already like made a deal with you on my commission, so that $2,000 I'll give back to you. Mm-hmm. Like I'm not gonna touch it. She wants to give me $2,000 back on the commission. I'm putting it out there. I'm selling your house for you at what I already agreed with you at. I could have kept that $2,000 and kept it to myself, right? I decided to give it to my boy and his family, give it back to them. Well, we go ahead, we accept their offer, we're going to do escrow, right? And we're sending commission instructions back to them, right? Commission instructions. My escrow's sending it to them. They keep sending it back like, oh no, it's $2,000 short. My escrow officer's coming back to me and it's like, hey, they're saying that the commission's not right. I'm like, well, she said she's giving me $2,000 commission back to my side, so please credit that back to my seller. Mm-hmm. So, escrow does it, Ben, sends the commission instructions back. They're not signing it. The broker's saying that it's wrong. I was like, have the broker call me. So immediately, this agent calls me. And mind you, this agent knows, like I know a lot of agents out there, so this agent knows my mutual circle of friends in the real estate game. So she's calling them like, yo, like this guy's crazy. Like he thinks I'm going to give $2,000 back. And I was like, I have a text message. Like she's talking to my friends and they're like, hey, that chick thinks that like you're trying to rob her for $2,000. I was like,
oh
what?
My God.
I was like, I have a text message from her saying like,
she's going
to give me the commission back if I accept their offer. And I accepted their offer. And so anyways, it gets down to the broker, right? And the broker calls me and he's an old timer and he's like, yo, what the hell's going on? And I was like, this lady said that if I accept her offer, she put it in her email with her offer, I'll give you $2,000 back to the buyer, to the seller. And so I put on an addendum. I send it back to you guys. You guys won't sign it. What the hell's going on? And so he's like, let me talk to her. Yeah. So the broker called me, and I'm the broker of the office, so I can be an asshole for my own transactions. I'm the broker. So like as an agent, you have to call your broker and tell him to be an asshole. I'm just there, the asshole already. So right. Anyways, so this lady, she's like, no. In my text, I said, if you accepted my offer today, I'll give you $2,000 back.
What?
So she sent me her offer like at 10 o'clock at night. So how the hell am I going to go to my seller and be like, accept this offer today? And
so you didn't end up you didn't get that $2,000.
Well, let me tell the story.
Oh my God.
So she was like, oh, I don't owe you the $2,000. You didn't accept it that day. And that's what the text said. It's like, okay, bitch, you want to play technical. So
Fight me.
No, okay. So we get to the week of closing escrow, right? So I'm calling, I'm just playing cool, like, okay, cool, like your $2,000, whatever. So she calls me, she's just like, hey Nick, it's Monday, right? And so I'm like, okay, cool, like it's Monday. Hey, so we get a plan to close like Friday? That's your closing date. Yeah, we should be able to close Friday. The lender's gonna get the docs out like tomorrow. Okay, cool. So I sent her on Tuesday a demand to close escrow by Friday. Okay, so demand to close escrow by Friday means that if she doesn't close by Friday, I can unilaterally cancel the transaction, meaning my sellers can say, hey, sorry, you lost the transaction, we're moving to someone else, without having to have them cancel. So I sent her that, and she just called me back. She's like,
damn,
what is this?
Piece of shit. That's what she thought. Like,
she was like, what is this? And I was like, oh, do you want an extension of time? If you want an extension of time, you have to credit my sellers $2,000. She fucking went nuts, right?
Wow.
She called her broker. Her broker called me. I was like, oh, you're supposed to close.
That was pretty fucked up of her, though.
Yeah, exactly. She's trying to be slick. So I was like, okay, I'll be a dick back.
Yeah.
And so I was like, so are you going to close by Friday? Her lender couldn't get it done by Friday. I was like, okay, so here's your cancellation. Please sign it so we can cancel. No. I'll give you the $2,000 for the extension. So for a week extension, I charged them $2,000, credited back to my seller. She paid $2,000. She fucking hated me. I ran into the broker at a cigar lounge not too long after that. He didn't know who I was personally, and then a mutual friend introduced us, and he was just like, "Oh, you're that bastard." I was like, "Dude,
it's me. I'm
you
the
try
one.
to be slick on me. You're trying to be slick on me.
I'll
be slick
like
back on them."
Agents, they do that. They flex on you, and then once you give it to them back, all of a sudden,
this is
you're
no
the
flex
bad guy.
zone. You can't beat me
You
in
can't,
contracts.
no,
I know contracts.
you can't.
If you know the contract, you can't get beat. So just know the contracts. Is what I'm gonna tell new agents and all. I teach all my agents, everyone underneath me, learn the contracts. You learn the contracts. That's how you can beat people. The only time I've ever been beaten in a contract was an attorney broker. They knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
I couldn't beat them. They got me.
On all the legalities. I just feel
it
like
was a different story for a different podcast.
The time of, I've been in this industry for 30 plus years. That is so old, or people reading you their resume of like, I've been in this industry. I've flipped 150
it's
properties.
like, I don't care. I've done more transactions in a year than you've done in your 30 years, probably.
But even so, even if you haven't, if you know your contract and you know what you're doing and you're experienced by working with experienced people, thank you, Nick, because I've worked with you for a while. And
she doesn't even work at my brokerage, and I'll give her all the information in the world because she's great.
And I want all the information. I love it, and it's for reasons.
I only charge her half the time. Like.
For reasons of that, though, it's helped me to where these people think that because they have 30 years experience that I don't know what I'm doing. And it's like, no, I know
have
more
10
than
years
you.
of experience, but like my mentor is an attorney. Like,
right.
Like I know contracts.
So don't flex. Like, don't flex your resume. Don't say, oh, I've been in this business for 30 years. No one wants to hear about it anymore. Like, no one cares.
You know what's cool is that when you come across an agent who's just like, I feel like sometimes it's newer agents who are just like freaking out about transaction, or it's I don't know what it is, but sometimes you just get an experienced agent who knows what they're doing. They're professional. You're like, hey, we got this thing into escrow. Let the lender take it from here. We'll do our inspections. We'll hit negotiations. We'll butt heads during negotiations. After that, our job's to be teammates to close this deal.
To close this deal,
like
right.
You're on the other side of the table. You're with the seller. I'm with the buyer. Vice versa. At the end of the day, we both want the same goal. For both of our clients want the same goal. It's a matter of just smoothing out the details, negotiating, and like not fighting. It's like push us together as a team.
But egos run high out there. I mean, people who, have top producer in their Instagram profile. It's
well, that's what this was that lady thought she was going to pull one over on me. And I was like,
and it's like you think that's what you're doing, but all you're doing is preparing me to manage you. Now I have to figure out, okay, you're going to be a problem this whole transaction. This is going to be the look at me, what I can do, and you're nothing, and condescending and rude the whole time. And then it ends up being you the one who's,
I'll tell you this,
the
like,
bad guy that
to
gets
get your
canceled.
offer accepted, I'm like an angel. Then when it comes to price negotiations or repair negotiations, I'm like your worst nightmare. And then after that, I'm like your buddy after that. Like we got through it. Now let's be buddies. Let's close this deal. At the other transaction, let's go have like
It's
drink.
like a round of golf with you. We start off as friends, we fight in the middle, and then at the end we have a drink.
Someone hurry up when she called. Anyways, well, cheers. I think that's a good note to take out on.
Cheers.
Shout out to Shoot a House.
Yes,
I like this
thank you,
podcast.
Shoot a
It's fun.
House.